Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Let's take a few moments and explore the process by which one may become a full-time Christian missionary with a missions organization. Do you remember specific events in your childhood in which you chose your future profession? I remember a missionary visiting and telling amazing stories about adventures in South Africa. At 10 years old, I knew I wanted to be a missionary. Little did I know that God already had a plan for my life, and that hindsight is 20/20. In Ephesians 1:4 it says, "For he chose us in him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in his sight." He knew us and has a plan for us. I've heard it said that you can make God laugh by telling him your plans. The call to missions requires us to review our past events that led to a clear view of the future. Do we see God leading us toward missions? We also need to look at our existing skill sets and talents, and are we able to see them being used in the mission field? We also need to look at the response of those who know us as we tell them about our desire to become missionaries. Do they say, "Wow, really? You?" Or do they say, "Wow, that's great. I can totally see you doing that." If it's the latter, then we can ask the question, how do we become a missionary? And we also need to ask, why do missions even exist? And I'd like to quote Jonathan Edwards as he wrote, "Missions is not the ultimate goal of the church. Worship is. Missions exist because worship doesn't. Worship is ultimate, not missions, because God is ultimate, not man. When this age is over and the countless millions of the redeemed fall on their faces before the throne of God, missions will be no more. It is a temporary necessity, but worship abides forever." So we know that missions exists because worship doesn't. What is the purpose of missions? It's to show others how to worship God as taught in the Bible. It is also to equip apostles and to send those apostles out into their communities. We also need to find the right missions organization for you. What is the organizational doctrinal statement? Does it match your beliefs? And if it doesn't, are those differences something that you can put to the side? If not, you may need to look for another organization. If so, you move forward. Where does this organization operate? Some of them are strictly certain areas or geographical areas. It might be South America, it might be Asia, it might be Africa or Europe or North America. Wherever God is leading you, you need to make sure that that organization is working in that area. Then you apply for the organization. You request your application, but you also need to be prepared for a multi-tiered application process. There's first the application, then there's the written testimony, then there's the defense of faith, and then there's the call to missions defense that you have to write. Then you also need your reference list of both Christians and non-Christians. Then you're ready for the organizational orientation of the candidates, in which you will be interviewed by the different directors and leaders of the organization. You'll need a psychological evaluation. Then you'll have a verbal testimony that you'll have to give. And then a final confirmation and acceptance by the missions organization. Once you've been accepted, then you're ready to determine your financial needs and your budgetary needs in the mission field. Then you're ready to start your support raising. I highly recommend Friend Raising, Building a Missionary Support Team That Lasts by Betty Barnett. It's a fabulous book that talks about raising up friends with you to pray for you and to give you support financially. Once you have that support, you have accountability. Then you're ready to get going to the field. And to do that, you need to get your visas and your paperwork done. Then you also need to get your shots and vaccinations. Depending on where you're going, whether it's to the jungles or if it's going to urban areas, your vaccinations will be different. Then you're ready to board the plane. get on the field. Then, for conclusion, now that we have explored the process by which you may become a full-time missionary through a missions organization, we must keep these things in mind. 1, all of it has to go to the glory of God. 2, you need to stay motivated to serve God. And 3, always be flexible and moldable. Our plans aren't always God's plans. And finally, we need to give it all to God. Let God direct you. I'd like to also recommend Let the Nations Be Glad, The Supremacy of God in Missions by John Piper, a fabulous book to prepare you for missions. Thank you for joining me.